Today we're building a worldview from scratch, and then we're going to run it through a gauntlet.
Gauntlet is the right word. We have a very specific, rigorous philosophical framework. It's not a religion, it's not a political ideology, it's essentially a rule book for intellectual honesty.
And the reason we call it a gauntlet is that it explicitly pits it against, what, 10 of the most common belief systems out there?
Everything from religious fundamentalism to hardcore materialism.
And argues why every single one of them fails the test of reality.
It's like a last man standing match for philosophy.
So here's our mission. We are going to construct this worldview. We'll look at its non-negotiable rules, pillars, and then we're going to throw it into the ring with everyone else and see if it survives.
And just a quick disclaimer before we dive in. Our job here isn't to tell you what to believe. We're just unpacking the arguments in these texts.
So let's build the foundation. If I want to subscribe to this outlook, what am I signing up for? What are the pillars?
There are 4 core commitments. Think of these as the entry fees. If you can't agree to these, you can't really play. The first one is the most straightforward: scientific realism.
Which means what exactly? Trust the science.
It's a bit deeper than a slogan. It means accepting that science is the indispensable tool for explaining mechanisms. Biology, physics, evolution, cosmology, these are the best tools humanity has ever invented for understanding how the physical world functions.
So no cherry picking.
0. This view completely rejects science denial. You don't get to pretend evolution isn't real just because it makes you uncomfortable, or that the Earth is 6,000 years old because a book said so. If there's physical evidence for it, this worldview accepts it, period.
Okay, that's pillar 1, scientific realism. What's pillar 2?
Pillar 2 is historical awareness, specifically regarding ancient texts. And this is where it gets interesting for, religious listeners. This view holds that religious scriptures, the Bible, the Quran, the Vedas, Sumerian tablets, are mythos.
Define mythos for us.
It means they're meaning-making narratives written by specific people in a specific time. The sources emphasize that ancient peoples were demonstrably wrong about almost everything observable. They didn't know what germs were, they didn't know the Earth orbited the sun, they thought the sky was a solid dome holding back water.
The firmament.
Exactly. So this worldview says, look, we accept these texts as history and mythology as valuable human stories, but we reject them as literal cosmology. You can't use a text written by people who thought the world was flat to disprove modern astrophysics.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. You wouldn't use a map of Middle Earth to navigate London.
Perfect analogy.
Okay, so we have science and history. What's the third pillar?
This is where the framework pushes back against the hardcore atheists. Pillar 3 is consciousness is an open problem.
Ah, the hard problem of consciousness.
It is. The sources argue that while neuroscience is great at mapping correlates, like this part of the brain lights up when you see red, it has completely failed to explain the subjective feeling of seeing red, what it is like to be alive.
So despite all our brain scans, we still don't really know how meat gives rise to mind.
We really don't. And this worldview refuses to just say, oh, science has solved the soul, when it clearly hasn't. It treats consciousness as a genuine unsolved mystery.
Which brings us to the final rule, the referee, so to speak.
The epistemic rule. Epistemic just refers to how we know what we know, and the rule is simple. Certainty without justification is invalid.
That's the heavy hitter.
It's the razor. You can't claim to know something, whether it's that God definitely exists and hates shrimp, or that God definitely doesn't exist and we're all just biological robots, unless you have evidence that warrants that certainty. If you don't have the receipts, you have to admit you don't know.
Okay, so before we get to the fight, the gauntlet, we need to clarify something. Because when you hear science is real, the Bible isn't science, show me the evidence, that sounds a lot like Atheism 101.
It does, but here's the nuance. The sources are very clear. This is not a denial of God or spirit or incorporeal reality. It doesn't say those things don't exist. It says we can't honestly claim to have the blueprints for them. It's a rejection of what the source calls metaphysical arrogance.
Metaphysical arrogance, I'm going to use that.
It's a great term. It basically means pretending you have the answer key to the universe when you're really just guessing.
Okay, we have our contender. It's scientifically grounded, historically aware, but open to mystery. It rejects dogma from the religious side and arrogance from the scientific side. Now let's run the gauntlet.
Let's do it.
We have 10 opponents listed here. We're going to go through them, and for each one, I want to know specifically why this honest uncertainty framework takes them down.
Ready?
Opponent number 1. Religious fundamentalism. The claim here is pretty standard. Scripture is divinely revealed, timeless, literal, and the ultimate authority on everything.
The argument is that fundamentalism fails because it demands we trust ancient writers on the most complex questions imaginable, the nature of the cosmos, the afterlife, when those same writers were demonstrably wrong about the simple stuff. If the ancient authors didn't know where rain came from, or that the moon isn't a light source, why on earth are we trusting their precise description of how the universe was made? The source material points out their gods always mirrored their social structures: kings, patriarchy, tribal warfare. It's completely arbitrary to assume they were wrong about the physical world, but uniquely correct about the invisible one.
It's a credibility issue. If I get the math wrong on the easy questions, you shouldn't trust me on the calculus.
That's it, exactly.
Moving on. Opponent number 2, evangelical Christianity. Now, this is distinct from fundamentalism because it focuses less on the dry text and more on the personal relationship.
Right. The claim here is, I know it's true because I feel it, the personal experience. I felt the Holy Spirit in church, therefore the Bible is true.
And why does our framework reject that?
It calls this the experiential fallacy. The source argues that emotional certainty is not metaphysical truth. The problem is that people in every religion have profound, life-changing spiritual experiences.
So a Christian feels Jesus, a Hindu feels Krishna, a Muslim feels the proximity of Allah.
And a secular person feels awe at the Grand Canyon. The experience is real, the comfort is real, but the framework says you can't use a feeling in your heart to prove a specific metaphysical legal system exists in the sky. It doesn't prove hell, it doesn't prove the Trinity. It just proves that humans have the capacity for deep spiritual emotion.
Got it. Okay, let's level up the difficulty. Opponent number 3, low-tier Christian apologetics. We're talking about those gotcha arguments you see online, the Kalam cosmological argument, the whole something can't come from nothing, therefore God.
This view dismisses those as philosophically shallow. They rely on outdated metaphysics. The idea of creation, that the universe must have a builder like a house has a builder, is a concept from ancient human intuition, not modern physics.
But doesn't the Big Bang imply a beginning, a start point?
It implies an expansion from a very dense state. But modern cosmological models, quantum gravity, eternal inflation, they don't necessarily require a temporal start in the way theologians think of it. The source says fixing on creation is a false dilemma. And even if there was a cause, jumping from there was a first cause to and that cause cares who you sleep with is a massive, unjustified logical leap.
That actually leads perfectly into opponent number 4. High-tier Christian apologetics. Now we're talking Aquinas, contingency arguments, the really heady academic stuff.
This is a tougher fight, for sure. These arguments are logically sound if you accept their premises, but the source argues they still fail the honest uncertainty test because of something it calls defining God into existence.
Please explain that.
You can use logic to prove an abstract necessary being or a prime mover. Philosophers do it all the time. But here's the catch. That abstract principle isn't a person. It isn't Yahweh. It doesn't answer prayers.
It's an intellectual castle in the sky.
Exactly. The source argues that even if the logic holds up, it doesn't bridge the gap to religious doctrine. You can prove a first cause, but you can't prove that first cause wrote the book of Leviticus. It's a philosophical trick, really, to smuggle religion in through the back door, and the framework rejects that sleight of hand.
Okay, we've hammered the religious side pretty hard. Let's pivot. Opponent 5, agnosticism. But yeah, isn't our worldview basically just agnosticism?
You would think so, but the text makes a really sharp distinction.
Yeah.
The classic agnostic says, we can't know for sure, so I'm just going to suspend judgment on everything and go watch TV. The view we're profiling today is much more aggressive. It's disciplined openness.
What's the difference?
The difference is the filter. An agnostic might say, well, maybe the Bible is literally true, maybe it's not, who knows? This framework says, no, the Bible is demonstrably not literally true based on history and science, so we reject that. Now, what's left? It actively clears away the brush.
I like the analogy used in the notes here. It's the difference between saying, I don't know what we're having for dinner, and I don't know what's for dinner, but I know we aren't eating rocks.
Precisely. It narrows the field of possibility. It's active, not passive.
Okay, let's go after the other side of the spectrum. Opponent number 6, low-tier atheist apologetics.
This is the internet atheist approach. The flying spaghetti monster crowd, mockery, religion is a mental illness, science has explained everything.
And the failure here.
It's scientism and philosophical ignorance. The source is really hard on this group. It says mockery is not an argument, and claiming that science proves God doesn't exist is just as dogmatic as the fundamentalist claiming he does. Science is silent on the supernatural.
Plus, simply pointing to brain scans doesn't explain the mystery of consciousness we talked about earlier.
Right, you can't explain away the human experience just by listing chemicals. It's reductionist in a way that just misses the point of being human. It's treating the map as if it were the territory.
So don't be a jerk, and don't oversimplify reality. But what about the smart atheists? Opponent number 7, high-tier atheist apologetics. We're talking physicalism, eliminativism, the idea that consciousness is just an illusion and physics is the only thing that exists.
This is where the debate gets really subtle. The failure here is treating current scientific models as ontologically final.
Unpack that for us.
It means assuming that the physics we know in 2026 is the total description of all reality forever. The source argues that as a form of faith. We have to remain open to the hard problem of consciousness. If you just wave it away and say, oh, it's all just atoms, you are ignoring a huge part of the data, which is the fact that we experience things.
It's a refusal to close the door on mystery.
Right.
It seems to suggest that the materialist is actually being unscientific by ignoring the data of subjective experience itself.
Correct. They're ignoring the one thing we experience most directly, our own minds, because it doesn't fit their model. And that's just bad science. It's like saying if my tool can't measure it, it doesn't exist.
Okay, opponent number 8, anti-theism. The belief that religion is inherently harmful and that belief itself is immoral.
The failure here is that it replaces inquiry with hostility. The source argues the metric should be harm, not belief itself.
Because some beliefs can be helpful.
Yes, beliefs can provide community, meaning, comfort. The source says dogmatic disbelief, insisting everyone must be an atheist to be moral, is just another form of dogma. It ignores the psychological and cultural reality of how humans function. It throws the baby out with the bathwater.
2 left. Opponent number 9, esotericism. Secret knowledge, hidden symbols, Da Vinci Code kind of stuff.
The failure is that it's unfalsifiable. It's often indistinguishable from fantasy. The source says it really well. Meaning is not knowledge. Just because you find a cool pattern or a symbol doesn't mean you've discovered the secret law of the universe. It's usually just your brain's pattern recognition gone wild.
And finally, number 10, New Age spirituality. Consciousness creates reality, manifesting. Everything is energy.
This gets hit hard for its pseudo-scientific language. The source calls it magical thinking.
But they talk about quantum physics a lot.
But they misuse it. They use quantum as a magic word to mean anything is possible. The source rebuts this by saying, subjective experience matters, but it doesn't rewrite the laws of physics. Reality resists wishful thinking. You cannot manifest a parking spot if the lot is full.
Okay, that was a lot. We have dismantled basically everyone. We've managed to tick off the priest, the atheist, and the yoga instructor all in about 10 minutes.
Equal opportunity offender.
But now I want to turn the tables. I want to play devil's advocate, because I'm listening to this and I'm thinking, this sounds a bit slippery.
Bring on the objection.
Objection number one, you are just redefining God. You're stripping away the personality, the history, the miracles, and just keeping this vague mystery. Isn't that cheating?
No. We are refusing to define what cannot be justified. It's not a redefinition, it's a refusal to make things up. If the evidence only points to mystery, then mystery is the only honest label. Adding a beard and a throne is a fabrication.
So it's stripping the paint off the house to see the wood underneath.
Right. The paint was the redefinition. The wood is the reality.
Okay. Objection two, you're fence-sitting.
Yeah.
You're rejecting the atheists. You're rejecting the believers. Just pick a side.
The source rejects the premise of that question. It says this is a side. It decisively rejects literalism, dogma, bad logic, and scientism. That's not sitting on a fence. That is building a filter. It's a very active position of saying no to bad arguments, regardless of where they come from.
It's like standing in the middle of the road and stopping traffic from both directions.
Exactly.
All right. Objection number three, and I think this is the one that scares people the most. This undermines meaning. If the stories aren't literally true, if there's no divine plan written in stone, doesn't life become meaningless?
This is the core existential fear, but the worldview argues that meaning does not require metaphysical certainty. You can find meaning in love, in work, in community, in the mythos of your culture, without needing that myth to be historically factual.
Like how we find meaning in Romeo and Juliet, even though we know they weren't real people.
That's a perfect example. We don't need a story to be a news report for it to move us to tears or change how we view love. The source argues that demanding literal truth actually cheapens the meaning, because it forces you to spend all your energy defending impossible things like a global flood, instead of engaging with the deeper message of the story.
Final objection. Neuroscience has already solved consciousness. You guys are holding on to this mystery of the mind, but give it 10 years and it'll just be circuits.
That's the promissory materialism argument. Just trust us, we'll solve it later, the source says. Maybe. But treating a future possibility as a current fact is, well, it's faith. Until that hard problem is actually solved, intellectual honesty demands we admit we don't know how the machine creates the ghost.
So where does this leave us? We've stripped away the certainty of the fundamentalist, the arrogance of the materialist, and the fuzziness of the new ager.
We are left with what the text calls the discipline of honest uncertainty.
Summarize the strength of this position for us. I mean, why bother with it? It sounds difficult. It sounds lonely.
It is difficult. It's much easier to just pick a team, memorize the slogans, and yell at the other guys. But the strength of this position is that it aligns with reality as we actually experience it. It accepts history as history, flawed, human, evolving. It accepts science as science, powerful, mechanistic, essential. And it accepts mystery as mystery.
It stops the fighting.
It stops the dishonest fighting. It dismantles opponents not by mocking them or shouting them down, but by calmly exposing their unjustified assumptions. It says, I'm willing to admit what I don't know. Why aren't you?
And there's some key takeaways here for the listener. If they want to apply this discipline to their own lives, what do?
First, intellectual honesty. Just refuse to lie to yourself. If you have doubts, acknowledge them. If you don't understand something, don't pretend you do just to fit in with your church group or your atheist Reddit thread.
And secondly,
humility is not weakness. This is the big one. We often think the guy shouting the loudest is the strongest. This view says no humility is a safeguard. It protects you from metaphysical overreach. It protects you from believing things that might actually be harmful or untrue.
It's a safeguard for your own mental health, really. You don't have to carry the weight of defending the indefensible.
It allows you to hold your beliefs lightly. You can have faith, or lack thereof, but you hold it with an open hand, not a clenched fist. It makes you a better listener, and frankly, a better neighbor.
I think that is a powerful place to land. It's not about having zero beliefs. It's about knowing the difference between what you believe and what you can prove.
And being okay with that gap.
So we'll leave you with this final thought from the source material.
The greatest intellectual failure isn't believing too little or too much. It's pretending we know what we don't and demanding others submit to it.